Have you ever met a guy who always says the incorrect thing, messes up conversations, or makes life tougher for everyone around him without even knowing it? It's likely that he's saying one of these 5 things that show weakness, stupidity, and a lack of self-control right away. Today, we'll go over the 5 things that a stupid man usually says and show you how a smart man talks, acts, and earns respect. By the end of this video, you'll not only be able to detect a fool from a mile away, but you'll also learn the mindset secrets that will keep you from sounding or acting like one. The things a guy says show how he thinks, and the things he doesn't say show much more about his strength and character. So pay great attention, because the difference between a wise man and a fool is frequently just a few words. Number 1. That's not my fault. The first thing that makes you look stupid is saying, "That's not my fault." It may appear like a light-hearted justification or a strategy to shield one's pride on the surface, but it actually shows a man's fragility in the clearest way possible. Power is built on responsibility. A man who won't take responsibility gives over his power, his dignity, and his influence to the world around him. But the instant he takes responsibility, he takes charge of his life, his choices, and how he reacts. That's what real power looks like. In his book Meditations, Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not over things that happen outside of it." You will discover strength if you understand this. But the ignorant man won't learn this lesson. He tells the world that he thinks his life is controlled by things he can't control when he blames others, points fingers and says, "That's not my fault." He thinks he is a victim, and as the Stoics always said, victims can't get respect. They are thought to be weak, frail, and not trustworthy. The sensible guy, on the other hand, takes responsibility even when he is not completely to blame. Why? Because owning something is how you grow. Epictetus remarked, "What matters is not what happens to you, but how you react to it." If you always blame other people, you're admitting that you can't do anything about it. Taking responsibility, even when it's not fair, shows strength. It shows that you are in charge of what you do, how you respond, and where you go in life. It's easy to make excuses, but they are bad for your character. Seneca said, "Expectancy, which hangs on tomorrow and loses today, is the biggest thing that gets in the way of living." When a man says, "It's not my fault," he loses today. Instead of getting better, he wastes time, energy, and respect on deflection. Blame may look like a shield, but it's really a cage. Every time a man says those words, he shows that he is weak by indicating that he is more afraid of being held accountable than he is of growing. Responsibility is not only a moral duty, it is also a means of liberation. The Stoics knew this without having to think about it. A person who takes responsibility is not held back by their situation, it gives them strength. Epictetus, who was born a slave yet went on to become one of the finest thinkers of his time, is a good example of this idea. He could have argued, "It's not my fault I was born into bondage," but instead, he turned his circumstance into a chance to learn and teach lessons that would last for hundreds of years. He took charge of his inner existence, which gave him power over his future in ways that no outside force could affect. Let's think about the world as it is now. Picture 2 men at work who are both dealing with the same problem, a project that didn't go as planned. The first man quickly says, "It's not my fault. The directions weren't clear. My teammates didn't do what they were supposed to do. The people in charge didn't help me." He uses outside factors as a shield to protect his pride. But he loses 10 times as much respect and credibility as he receives in short-term relief. People don't want to be around him when things go tough. Now picture the second man claiming, "I should have seen the problems coming," when he met the same setback. "I'll figure out a way to fix it." He says he is responsible for the mistake, even if it wasn't all his fault. People suddenly trust him. He takes charge. He stays calm under pressure, which makes his reputation stronger. The difference is not in the failure itself, but in how people react to it. The Stoics stressed again and over that things that happen outside of ourselves are neutral. The result is determined by our choices and actions. Marcus Aurelius said, "If something outside of you is bothering you, the pain is not because of the thing itself, but because of how you see it. You can change your mind about it at any time." When a man says, "That's not my fault," he chooses to be upset and helpless. When he says, "I will take responsibility," he takes back control and turns a bad situation into a good one. The same thing happens in relationships. A man who always blames others for problems at home or in friendships shows that he is immature and insecure. A smart person, on the other hand, looks at their role, learns from their failures, and does something to make things better. Cleanthes, an early Stoic, said that virtue is not merely an idea. It is a power that people use in their daily lives. So responsibility isn't just a theory. It's something that affects how people see and regard you. It's also important to remember that evading responsibility is not only ethically weak, but it is also bad for society and for your own plans. Repeatedly saying, "It's not my fault," makes people less likely to believe you. Once you lose trust, it's very hard to get it back. The naive man thinks that justifications would keep him safe, but they actually make him alone. The wise guy recognizes that being responsible makes people loyal, improves relationships, and gives you power. This is a silent message to the world. This man can be trusted even when things are tough. Lastly, think about the psychological side. Excuses make a man feel better in the moment, but they also make him feel conflicted, uncomfortable, and reliant on what other people think. He gives up his freedom by not taking responsibility. Responsibility, on the other hand, sets you free. It gives a guy the ability to see things as they are, make decisions quickly, and build the future with confidence. Seneca said, "It's not that we don't have much time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." It's pointless to blame other people. Taking charge of your life is power. So every time a man thinks about saying, "That's not my fault," he has to choose between being weak or strong, being a victim or in charge. The foolish guy shelters behind blame. A wise person takes responsibility. People look down on the ignorant man. People respect the wise man. The foolish guy is thrown around by fate. The smart man is based on virtue and can respond, change, and lead. Ultimately, accountability is the ultimate test of character. A man who takes responsibility, even when he can't control things, becomes unbreakable. People turn to him when things go wrong. He becomes a man whose words matter because they are based on what he does. It may feel safe to blame others, but it is a prison. It may feel like a heavy burden, but responsibility is a crown. A guy who always says, "That's not my fault," will never get ahead. People will remember a man who says, "I'll make it right." The difference between a fool and a Stoic is the difference between making excuses and taking responsibility, being weak and strong, and being a victim and a master. Number 2, I already know that. The second phrase that shows idiocy is arrogance that seems like knowledge. I already know that. It looks like a simple statement of confidence on the surface. But underneath those words is dread. Fear of looking dumb, fear of being chastised, and fear of being humble. The ignorant man is afraid to reveal weakness, so he acts like he understands everything. In doing thus, he completely shuts the door on wisdom. Seneca said, "The biggest problem with living is expecting things to happen tomorrow and losing today." When a man replies, "I already know that," he is always looking ahead and trying to defend his image instead of being present to learn. He misses the chance to learn today because he is too worried about looking smart. To learn, you need to be patient, pay attention, and be willing to accept that you will never be entirely complete. The ignorant man thinks that admitting he doesn't know anything makes him less important. But in reality, Saying you already know everything makes you look bad to everyone who appreciates discernment. Being wise isn't something you do, it's something you do all the time. Epictetus made this point quite apparent when he said, "A man cannot learn what he thinks he already knows." The fool's head is closed, his ears can't hear subtlety, and his heart can't see deeper truths. He thinks that knowing something well means he knows how to do it well. Compare this to the wise man. The smart guy pays close attention, even to things he believes he knows. He goes over teachings again, thinks about the details, and compares what he knows to what he sees in the world. He understands that learning never ends. Cleanthes, an early Stoic, said that virtue grows slowly, like a tree that takes in sunlight and water. It grows slowly, steadily, and in small steps. Like virtue, knowledge can't be rushed or taken for granted. A man who says, "I already know that," is stuck in his own head. He is more concerned with looking wise than with being wise. He won't accept the reality because he's afraid of being embarrassed. When he shuts himself off, he stops growing. The student, on the other hand, is the man who stays humble, curious, and open-minded. He keeps growing, which makes him better able to understand, act, and have an impact. Consider how this works in today's world. The individual who says he already knows everything doesn't usually add anything useful to meetings, classes, workshops, or even casual discussions. He stops learning, ignores what others say, and makes people feel bad about themselves. He shows how incompetent he is by trying to look competent. The wise guy, on the other hand, pays close attention, asks questions, and puts what he learns into practice. He isn't afraid of looking stupid since he knows that being humble is the way to become an expert. Picture this. Two men are working together. A mentor gives you a tip on how to deal with a tough customer. The first man cuts in and says, "I already know that," without thinking about the advice. The mentor is less likely to give him advice since he sees how arrogant he is. The second man, on the other hand, listens, even though he thinks he already understands the plan. He thinks about what he hears, asks questions, and makes the advice work for him. It's evident what the difference is. One closes doors while the other opens them. One stays the same while the other grows. The Stoics thought that knowing things without being humble was pointless. Marcus Aurelius said, "Take without pride and let go without attachment." A man must accept wisdom without the weight of his ego in order to fully learn from it. When a guy believes he knows everything, he not only stops himself from growing, but he also stops others from learning from their own experiences and insights. He keeps to himself mentally and socially. The Stoics emphasized that being humble is not a sign of weakness. It is a strength in strategy. It lets a man see clearly, make smart choices, and form relationships based on respect for each other. Epictetus stated, "Say what you want to be first, and then do what you have to do." To be smart, you first have to accept what you don't know. The foolish guy skips this phase because he thinks he knows too much too soon, which slows down his own advancement. When a dumb person says they know everything, they typically show impatience, annoyance, and defensiveness. When someone questions him, he gets angry. When someone corrects him, he gets angry. And when someone challenges him, he gets angry. All of this shows that you are not sure of yourself. The intelligent person sees correction as a tool, not a threat. He realizes that getting criticism, seeing things from a different angle, and learning things over and over are all important for growth. You can learn something new from every lesson, even if you already know it well, if you pay attention and think about it. People that are willing to learn, own their mistakes, and keep growing are the most respected people in life. Socrates, a key figure in Stoic thinking, famously said, "I know that I know nothing." He didn't lose anything by admitting his flaws. In fact, it made him brilliant. The foolish man, on the other hand, won't accept that he doesn't know something, which means he will never really master it. The main difference between a fool and a wise man is that one wants to look smart and the other wants to learn. One holds on to their ego while the other welcomes learning. One person responds, "I already know that," which stops them from growing. The other person listens over and over again, getting better at understanding. In every area of life, a man who won't learn will fall behind. He might learn a lot of things on the surface, but he won't have depth, judgment, or understanding. The humble learner, who is interested, thoughtful, and open-minded, gains insight that lasts, earns respect, and changes the world. The fool talks a lot, but what he says doesn't mean anything. The wise guy talks slowly, but what he says means something because he knows what he's talking about, has been through it, and thinks about it. In the end, saying you know everything is a sneaky but strong way to lock yourself up. When a man says, "I already know that," he stops listening, learning, and growing. The smart guy, on the other hand, is always learning. He sees every lesson, interaction, and difficulty as a chance to learn more. Being humble opens doors, while being arrogant shuts them. Vanity comes from knowing things without being humble. Power comes from being humble while knowing things. So the next time you hear a man say, "I already know that," remember that he is telling the truth. His mind is closed, his soul is limited, and his life is limited. A man is free when he listens, even if he believes he understands. No matter how much experience a person has, they are powerful if they keep learning, asking questions, and thinking. The pupil is always better than the person who says they are a master. Number 3. That's impossible. The third sign of a fool is hopelessness. That's impossible. It might look like a simple way of saying, "I'm not sure," or a careful observation at first, but really, it shows a man who has already given up before even trying. He has let fear, self-doubt, or a lack of imagination control his life. He limits himself to mediocrity the instant he says something is impossible, building invisible walls where there could be bridges. Marcus Aurelius, who led Rome through wars, hunger, and pestilence that never ended, never said that problems were too hard to solve. He said in Meditations, "The thing that stops you from doing something makes you do it. What is in the way becomes the way." In other words, problems aren't reasons to give up, they're the way to go. It is a key Stoic fact that reality is neutral and that our perceptions create restrictions that are much more limiting than any situation. The stupid person thinks of barriers as impediments. The smart person sees them as chances. Seneca said, "Fire tests gold and trouble tests the brave. In the fire of trouble, strength is made." A man who yells "impossible" at the first indication of trouble shows that he has a weak intellect and can't handle stress. He is so afraid of failing that he won't even try to win. But every obstacle is a test, and every test is a chance to show what kind of person you are. Think about history. Every amazing thing that humans have done, from the Wright brothers' first flight to the moon landing, to curing deadly diseases and deciphering the human genome, was previously thought to be impossible. People with small intellect laughed, made fun of, or shrugged. They set restrictions that didn't really exist, and they stayed within those limits because they were afraid and unsure. When a man says, "That's impossible," he shows the world that he is weak. He shows that he doesn't have the confidence, imagination, or willpower to do something. Instead, the intelligent man asks, "How can it be done?" Saying impossible closes doors, even in everyday life. Think about a group of people at work coming up with a new way to reach customers in a market that is already full. One man says, "That's not possible. We've tried and it won't work." Innovation dies right away. The drive dissipates. The chance goes away. But a guy who says, "How can we make this work?" sparks creativity, gets the team involved, and often finds answers that no one imagined were possible. The difference is in how you think. Giving up versus being curious, and seeing limits versus seeing possibilities. Epictetus said that the problem isn't what happens outside of us, it's how we see it. He stated, "It's not the things themselves that bother us, but how we think about them." When a man says that's impossible, he is not talking about what is real. He is admitting that his imagination is limited. The problem may be hard, complicated, or new, but impossible is almost never a fact. It's a choice. Seeing limits means settling for mediocrity, but seeing opportunities means growing. The ignorant guy often tries to explain why that's impossible is true. He will give explanations, reference examples, or use authority to explain why he gave up. But these reasons are really just excuses for dread. Marcus Aurelius went through a lot of tough times, yet he never made excuses. He said to himself, "If it is bearable, then bear it. Stop whining." The smart person doesn't waste time looking for reasons to give up. Instead, they look for strategies to achieve. The expression, "that's impossible," shows that you are limiting yourself, even on a personal level. A man who is afraid or used to doing things a certain way would say that learning a new skill, establishing a business, or fixing a broken relationship is impossible. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, thought that the mind's judgments were the only things that might limit the soul's potential. When you say something is impossible, you are ignoring that possibility and making it harder to reach. Every problem has something to teach us. Every failure teaches you something. The man who says that's impossible won't talk to any of them. He stops doing things and becomes predictable. But the smart person turns problems into chances. He tests the limits, tries new things, learns, and changes. He makes the most of hard times, and what once seemed impossible becomes a way to go forward. The Stoics knew that being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means being able to act even when you're afraid. If you say something is impossible, you are letting fear decide what you do. Seneca said, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than he needs to." The individual who gives up on impossible things suffers not because of the obstacle itself, but because he gives up on it. Taking action, even when you're not sure what will happen, can help ease pain by turning possible despair into real effort. It's crucial to understand that saying something is impossible has a social side. When a man keeps saying that's impossible, he affects the people around him and makes them feel like they can't win. Teams lose their drive, ideas stop moving forward, and opportunities are missed. On the other hand, when a man asks, "How can it be done?" he motivates the people around him. He becomes a leader, not because of his position or power, but because of his attitude, bravery, and ability to bounce back. A modern example is entrepreneurs who go against the norm. At first, every new idea, like electric cars and personal computers, seemed implausible. The world would be smaller, poorer, and less creative if innovators had given up on what everyone else thought. People with small minds say things like, "That's impossible." The phrase, "How can it be done?" is a sign of growth, mastery, and vision. Lastly, think about how you can change on the inside. When a man won't say impossible, he learns to be strong, creative, and disciplined. Every problem is a chance to be creative. Every problem is a chance to be persistent. Every day, Marcus Aurelius said that problems are the building blocks of virtue. The thing that stops you from doing something makes you do it. The obstacle becomes the path. The intelligent man realizes that impossible is not a wall. It is the way itself. So the next time you want to say that something is impossible, stop. Think about it. Is it really impossible? Or is it just something I can't picture right now? The person who says that's impossible shows that they are afraid, weak, and stuck. The sensible guy instead asks, "How can this be done?" He gets involved, learns from his mistakes, and finds answers that small-minded others can't even see. Hope, creativity, and doing things go hand in hand. A fool gets smaller when things get hard, while a stoic turns hard things into mastery. A man who says that's impossible gives up. A man who wonders, "How can it be done?" gets up. And as he rises, he finds strength, bravery, and the limitless power of a mind that won't give in to limits. Number 4. Why should I change? The fourth sentence that shows folly is, why should I change? This is an example of opposition to growth. It can seem like a good question at first, wanting to know why, but in truth, it's a way of being rude that looks like asking questions. This is not being curious, it's being stuck. It comes from a man who prefers comfort to development, habit to change, and convenience to morality. The dumb guy holds on to what he knows, even when it hurts him, because change requires work, humility, and bravery, things he won't work on. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius told himself, always remember that it happens because of change, and get used to the idea that the universe loves nothing more than to change the things that are. The universe is always moving. Nothing stays the same. To fight change is to fight life itself. The person who asks, why should I change, is going against the flow of life. He puts up walls to keep himself from growing, but he eventually learns that those walls also keep him in. The stupid person is afraid of being uncomfortable. To change, you need to put in the work, think about it, and be willing to face your own flaws. It requires a degree of honesty that most people shy away from. It makes a guy look at himself as he really is, not as he pretends to be. Choosing illusion over reality and stagnation over progress is what it means to fight change. But the world rewards people who are willing to change. The wise guy knows that pain is what makes a person who they are. The soul gets sharper via change and struggle, just like iron gets sharper with iron. Seneca said, every new beginning comes from the end of another beginning. A man who won't change holds on to ends that don't help him anymore, not knowing that every ending is a chance to start over. The foolish man keeps habits, relationships, or behaviors that make him weaker just because they are familiar. The smart man, on the other hand, never stops looking for ways to progress. He recognizes that life will always require change, so instead of fighting it, he gets ready to adapt, get better, and go on. Think about a man in his job. He has habits that make things easier but also hold him back, including putting things off, being too comfortable, or avoiding responsibilities. He says, why should I change? When someone gives him helpful feedback, he misses the potential to improve his skills, grow his influence, and become an expert. The smart guy, on the other hand, sees comments as advice, not condemnation. Instead, he asks, how can I get better? How can I be better? One inquiry closes doors, the other one opens them. One keeps him little, the other lets him grow. Change is not always easy. It puts your identity, ego, and daily life at risk. However, the Stoics recognize that discomfort should not be evaded. It is the pathway to virtue. Epictetus said, difficulties show a person who they are. A man who won't change will never really know who he is. He is still weak and safe in the false sense of stability. The wise guy, who is open to change, finds abilities he never knew he had, improves his character, and becomes more resilient. This principle is needed even in personal relationships. A man who won't change to meet the demands of the people he loves or fix his own flaws slowly loses trust in connection. He may say he is loyal, but his words don't mean anything because behavior is what shows maturity. The sensible person, on the other hand, welcomes change and self-reflection. He listens, changes, and grows, not out of vanity, but because it's the right thing to do. The ignorant man often uses pride to explain why he won't change. I'm fine the way I am. Why do I need to change? He thinks being complacent is the same as being happy. He thinks that being afraid of being uncomfortable is being smart. He thinks that keeping his ego safe is the same as keeping his life safe. The Stoics understood that an unexamined and unpolished existence is a life only half-lived. Cleanthes said that the soul needs to exercise all the time, just like a soldier or an athlete. To ignore training and stay weak when you may be strong is to fight change. This kind of opposition is deadly in leadership. A manager, parent, or mentor who doesn't want things to change because they're comfortable stops everyone else from growing. Respect fades, influence fades, and innovation dies. On the other hand, a leader who is willing to change shows strength and bravery. Others follow because they see the example. Change is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of control over oneself, one's circumstances, and one's fears. The person who asks, "Why should I change?" only sees danger. The sensible person recognizes a chance. Risk, discomfort, and difficulty are not foes. They are instruments of transformation. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that hardship is not punishment, but rather training. He said, "The thing that stops action moves action forward. The thing that gets in the way becomes the way." Change is both the obstacle and the way forward. The foolish man is afraid of it. The intelligent guy moves forward through it. Not wanting to change also makes it hard to see. A man who won't change holds on to a restricted view of life, thinking that what he knows is enough. He misses out on the chance to progress in his job, his relationships, and his ability to control himself. The Stoics often talked about how important it is to have a broad view of things. A man finds opportunity everywhere when he opens his mind and accepts the changes that come with life. The wise person asks, "What can I learn from this? How can I get stronger?" The fool says, "Why should I change?" and then shuts his mind. In the end, not wanting to change means not wanting to live. The cosmos keeps going, no matter how scared, comfortable, or resistant it is. A man who fights this truth just makes things harder for himself. The Stoic way is to accept change as a part of life and use it to progress. A man can accept change without fear if he is humble, brave, and reflective. When you feel like saying, "Why should I change?" remember that it's just fear trying to sound like reason. Instead, ask yourself, what can I do better? What can I turn into? The man who won't change stays weak. The man who accepts it finds strength. The ignorant person holds on to comfort and false hope. The intelligent man interacts with reality and molds himself according to morality. Change is not a choice, it is unavoidable. To fight it is to fight life itself. The wise man knows that change comes with pain. He understands that every problem, every criticism, and every break is a chance to grow as a person. Saying, "Why should I change?" means you don't want to take this chance. Asking, "How can I get better?" instead is a step toward mastery, resilience, and liberation. A man who won't change will always be little. A person who accepts change becomes unshakable. The difference is not the situation, it is the way of thinking. It's not opportunity that makes the difference, it's courage. The only thing that makes a fool different from a wise man is that the fool doesn't want to change. The Stoic takes it. Number 5, it's not fair. The last sentence that shows how dumb someone is the whine of weakness. It's not fair. It sounds like a simple complaint at first, like something that happens when things get tough. But in actuality, it shows that you have little power. Life was never meant to be fair. Fortune elevates certain individuals while subjugating others, frequently without discernible rationale. When you say it's not fair, you're not focusing on the only thing you can control: your own mind, choices, and actions. Seneca said this truth in a very clear way. Sometimes, just living is an act of courage. Life throws us problems that can't be solved by laws, negotiations, or trying to make things fair. People who feel powerless and don't want to understand that they can be strong, resilient, and virtuous employ the language of complaining about fairness. When a guy starts to obsess on fairness, he loses control and wastes energy on things that aren't real instead of doing something. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who fought in wars, was betrayed, and got sick. Never wondered if life was fair. He didn't stop to feel sorry for himself. Instead, he thought about what he could do. He kept telling himself, "You have power over your mind, not things that happen outside." The ignorant man, on the other hand, wastes his energy complaining about the world, demanding fairness and crying out against it. He sees life as a list of complaints instead of a list of things to learn how to do. The wise man knows that complaining doesn't help, so he adapts, overcomes, and bends reality with his willpower, creativity, and determination. When you remark, "It's not fair," you are blaming others and not taking responsibility. It is an unwillingness to realize that life is always changing, that luck is random, and that power comes from how you respond to things, not from what happens to you. The Stoics thought that the secret to freedom and power was not to change the world to fit our needs, but to change ourselves so that we can deal with the world as it is. Epictetus famously said, "What matters is not what happens to you, but how you react to it." Those phrases sum up what makes a wise guy different from a fool. Think about instances from actual life. A man who was passed up for a promotion says, "It's not fair," and then leaves, letting hatred define him. Another person looks at the situation objectively, learns from it, and utilizes it as a reason to do better at something, build stronger relationships, or find a better way. One response is to be weak, and the other is to be strong. Nothing changes when you complain about fairness, but everything changes when you focus on what you can influence. There is no guarantee of fairness. Winning isn't a sure thing. What you can count on is your ability to persevere, do the right thing, and respond with strength. Seneca said that life is a battleground where the brave win, not because the odds are in their favor, but because their minds are strong and disciplined. The person who says, "It's not fair," has already lost. The wise person sees every problem as a test, a way to improve their skills, strengthen their character, and grow their abilities. The ignorant man compares his life to others all the time, always evaluating his situation against theirs. The intelligent person looks at growth, strength, and virtue as signs of a good existence. A man who complains about fairness is envious, angry, and bitter. A man who concentrates on action, discipline, and mastering himself rises above his circumstances. Marcus Aurelius told himself that what happens outside of him doesn't matter. What matters is how he judges, works, and responds. The man who learns to deal with hard times becomes unstoppable. The man who complains about fairness becomes stuck in weakness. Fairness is an idea, not something that happens in real life. A man who waits for life to be fair will never get what he wants. Fortune is not biased toward either merit or effort. It is neutral. But the sensible man doesn't give up hope. He realizes that life doesn't give everyone the same amount of luck and utilizes that as a reason to make himself stronger. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, said that virtue is enough for happiness. He said that outside circumstances may be random, but we may always have virtue. So, complaining about fairness means you don't believe you can grow in virtue. In relationships, declaring "it's not fair" makes it harder to have an effect on someone. A man who always complains about unfairness causes problems, anger, and dissatisfaction in himself and in others. A smart person, on the other hand, accepts that things and people aren't perfect. He replies with patience, understanding, and a plan of action. He doesn't ask for fairness. Instead, he constructs reality with discipline and calmness. He gets a lot more than fairness could ever give him by doing this. People who say it's not fair are frequently angry, emotional, and impulsive. The Stoics said that these kinds of reactions are a waste of energy. Cleanthes, an early Stoic, said that a mind schooled in endurance, reason, and virtue is not affected by luck. Not by good circumstances, but by working hard in the face of unfairness, does strength grow. The smart person knows this and acts on it. Life is not always fair, but the Stoics remind us that we are in charge of our own decisions, actions, and reactions. Marcus Aurelius said, "If something outside of you is bothering you, it's not the thing itself that's causing you pain, it's your opinion of it. You can change your mind about it at any time." The dumb guy blames the world. The wise guy knows how to judge it. One person gets weak and the other gets strong. In the end, arguing about fairness shows that your intellect isn't strong enough to handle it. The man who concentrates on what he can't control becomes a slave to fate. The wise guy just thinks about what he can control, such as thinking, his effort, and his character. He uses these things to shape reality to his will. The foolish person cries about the cards they were dealt. The smart guy plays them like a pro, getting chances, strength, and progress from every hand. Life will never be fair, and problems will always come up. People who complain about it stay weak. People that endure, adapt, and do the right thing become unbreakable. Stoicism says that fairness doesn't bring happiness, power, or mastery. Instead, self-discipline, bravery, and a clear mind do. If you cry it's not fair, you stay little. To rise above your situation and earn respect, you need to act with calmness, purpose, and determination. So if you feel like saying it's not fair, take a moment to think about it. Understand that complaining doesn't help, but a disciplined response does. The fool sees unfairness and is sad. The sensible man notices a problem and does something about it. The foolish person complains about their luck, whereas the stoic person controls their own luck. The distinction between weakness and strength, failure and success, despair and mastery, resides in the capacity to suffer and respond, irrespective of fairness. Every time a dumb person talks, they show themselves. That's not my fault. I already know that. That's not possible. Why do I need to change? It's not fair. Each of these sentences shows weakness, not wanting to grow, not taking responsibility, and not being able to bounce back. The Stoics gave us a guide to better speech and stronger minds. Take responsibility instead of blaming. Don't be arrogant, be humble. Don't give up, keep going. Change opposition into transformation. Change your dissatisfaction into acceptance. The things you say are not small. They are the seeds of the life you want to live. If you talk like a fool, you will live like one. People will know right away that you are a man who cannot be shaken if you speak with discipline, intelligence, and strength.